what's the other hot topics going on at the Flamborough banquet? Anything else you pick
I
up on
found
your
this,
travels?
yeah. So there was a schedule at every place set in the venue. And I glanced through the schedule, saw the Grisdale Racing Products Triple Crown races that I want to make sure that I try to get to. And I didn't notice until someone pointed out on Facebook, but the mini stocks have more races this year than they have in years past. Apparently there are 23 races on the schedule for mini stocks, and some of the drivers have gone online to complain, to say, look, for the last few years, we've had a weekend off every month, at least a weekend off. And this is going to be a grueling schedule. You're going to lose race cars. You're going to lose race teams. You're not listening to what the teams want. And I found it interesting. And Doug Leonard, who's the race director there, I've seen him involved in some of these conversations, sharing his piece. I have mixed feelings about it, Clinton, because nobody forces anyone to run for perfect attendance or run for a points championship. And it certainly doesn't pay a lot of money to do so. So if someone wants to take a weekend off every month, I've always wondered, why don't you just take a weekend off? But I also understand that people want to have perfect attendance and race for points championships. What is your take on that?
Well, we've been through the gamut. I mean, at the tracks I've managed over the years, at one point we did so that would allow drivers to take a week or two off and go on vacation, and then the ones who wanted to race could still race. But then what we found was that the drivers who were taking the weeks off weren't going on vacation. They were racing a competing series at a competing track. So our guys got mad at the end of the year and said, wait a minute now. We dedicated ourselves to you, and you let somebody who picked and choose when he wanted to be here be the champion. So that's where we went away with drops. The other side to it is, I can see the mini stock guys. They're hobbyists. They're more. I never want to say entry level, but if there's any class that probably would be all right with parking their stuff on the weekend, because they're maybe just getting into it, or maybe not as hot and heavy as we are up in the upper classes sometimes. But I mean, again, don't slaughter me, mini stock guys. You're just as dedicated. It's not what I'm saying, but you know what I'm getting at. And I think, I last year with the Action Sprint Tour, the guys came to me and said, hey, after our big race, we always take the Friday off, but you booked us an Action Sprint Tour race. If you didn't book anything that weekend, we could have had 9 days off. So we actually purposely did that. I actually blocked that weekend out and said no. So I was conscious of that to give our guys and all the Ush Weekend staff and everybody associated with the Big O gets 8 days off after the Pinty's race. But that's a tough battle, because you look at John, you're trying to run your business. If that's the most successful class, like, mini stocks need to look at it that way. They want you every week, because as a promoter and me saying that means they're cost effective, they're bringing a good crowd, they're putting on a good show, all those reasons to be proud of why you want on every week. So it's a tough call. What's the solution? What do you think the answer should be there, Adam?
My answer won't be very popular among the racers, but I say, if you're on the schedule every week, you're on the schedule every week. You don't have to race every week. I get both sides, but I also get that the lower classes are the lower classes for a reason. The politically correct answer would be to say, mini stocks, you put on the best racing week in and week out. We can't afford you to have you off the schedule. That's the politically correct answer. The politically incorrect answer is, okay, who can I afford to upset? Mini stocks are late models. You can't run the late models too much, because there is a big expense week in and week out. Mini stocks, there's different ways to look at it. I don't think one is necessarily right and one is necessarily wrong, but it's reality. You got to put on a show. And there's a lot of traveling clubs that just aren't bringing the numbers these days. And if the mini stocks if they keep up that pushback, what if the vintage modifieds start to show up with 30 cars every week? And John Caselli decides, you know what? I don't need the mini stocks. We've got pure stocks, vintage modifieds, super stocks, and late models. That's good enough for us. Thanks for your time, mini stocks, but I don't think we'll need you next year.
No, and I think, Justin Sharp comments here. one weekend off a year is good, but if you take that off by yourself away from the division to go camping, like you say, well, go ahead, take the week off, then you're handicapped out. But Flamborough is an open draw system, so as long as you're a member, that doesn't affect. But in some instances, that would affect you, Sharpie. So I do see your point there. I think when you put it all together, like we said, the track has to do what's best for them, and in some weeks it's not easy to make it. But if you want to be there, the other thing that I face is, we do a lot of stuff at Ush Weekend for 100% perfect attendance. A lot of people say, well, I got a lot of guys who only missed 2 nights, and I'm like, yeah, but all the benefits are for those guys who made every effort to get there every week because it was on the schedule, like you said. And that's our incentive there. Is it's not 90%, it's not 95, it's 100% attendance, and then you get the Hoosier Tire bonus money, the points payouts, everything else you need to go with it. So it's a tough call, but good thing for the mini stocks to be that in demand.